westernmost part of Cornwall, Penwith, boasts a plethora of prehistoric sites, megalithic monuments. This is a guided tour of the sites on the granite backbone of the peninsula from Brea in the west to Trencrom Hill in the east. The commanding view of the surrounding land and sea makes it unsurprising that this most westerly hill has played an important role in the area since the Neolithic age. On a clear day, the Isles of Scilly can even be seen on the horizon. The Bronze Age summit Carn is surrounded by smaller burial monuments, difficult to spot however. In the medieval period, a hermitage and chapel stood here, giving the hill its name. There has also been a beacon which traditionally is lit on Midsummer Eve. About 2 kilometers eastward is Carn Euny. What we see here are 4 interlocked circular structures, the remains of courtyard houses which were built in the 1st century BC in the Iron Age. The roots of the village are Bronze Age, however. The most interesting details are the so-called beehive hut and the fugel. The beehive hut is the oldest element of the settlement, built in the 5th century BC and was the first to be discovered in 1840. During the excavation, the fugel was discovered, which is about a century younger. The passage is about 12 meters long and covered by 11 enormous granite slabs. A short distance to the east is Caer Bran, a hill fort with a diameter of 115 meters. The outer earthen rampart dates from the Iron Age, while the inner rampart has turned out to date back to the Bronze Age, and is made of stone, much of which, however, has been removed to build modern houses in the 19th century. Inside the ramparts are some stony mounds, the origin of which dates back to the Bronze Age. From this hill fort you can see Sancreed Beacon. It is a granite hill rising to about 180 meters above sea level. Being in such a prominent location, the beacon was lit to give a warning during the Napoleonic Wars. There are spectacular views from the top across Mounts Bay. The area was inhabited in the Bronze Age, and at the top a keen observer can discover 2 burial mounds. This is one of the many stone circles in Penwith. It is the only remaining one of 3 circles in this very place. Stone circles were part of the culture of Neolithic and Bronze Age people. There is no consensus among archaeologists what the function of these circles was, but it is likely that they were the setting for certain ceremonies and rituals. The circle here consists of 19 stones, 21 meters in diameter, and like many megalithic monuments, the circle can be considered as one element sitting within a ceremonial landscape. Overlooking the circle, and visible from many points of the peninsula, is Carn Kenidjack, also called the Hooting Tor in local legend, on account of the noise that the wind makes when it blows through the rocks. The place is one of the 4 tor enclosures in Penwith, the others being Trencrom Hill, Carn Galva and St. Michael's Mount. They weren't settlements but landmarks, central points in people's mental maps from Neolithic times onwards, considered holy places where people would congregate for ceremonial purposes on certain days of the year like Midsummer's Eve or Equinox. From the Carn, Boswen's Menhir is visible in the distance. 2.5 meters high and of an interesting shape, it is quite an impressive standing stone, another jigsaw piece in the megalithic network. Not only can Chûn Quoit be easily seen from here, but Tregeseal Circle, the Menhir and Boskednan Circle, which we'll visit later, are clearly aligned. Quoits are the oldest megalithic structures in Penwith. They were probably designed as repositories for the bones of the dead, whose bodies may have been laid out on the capstones for the carrion birds to remove the flesh, a practice known as excarnation. They were constructed by Neolithic farmers who had settled and begun to plant crops and raise cattle. Each group occupied their own area, and on high ground nearby they would construct one of these quoits. They also served as territorial markers and were most probably used for ceremonial purposes. Chûn Quoit is the most authentic and best preserved burial chamber in Cornwall. The mighty capstone is still in its original position, and even today the place exudes some spirituality. Originally the stones would have been covered by a mound, ringed with a low curb or small boulders. There may have been a forecourt in front of the entrance to the chamber, which would have provided the setting for funerary rites and rituals of an ancestor cult. The significance of this ritual place from the Neolithic would have been respected by the Iron Age people who erected nearby Chûn Castle. In terms of distance, there are little more than 300 meters between these two. In terms of time, there are probably 3,000 years. Chûn Castle is roughly circular. 85 meters in diameter, the fort consists of 2 stone walls flanked by an external ditch. The walls may have been double the height originally, but have been reduced to between 2 and 3 meters after centuries of stone robbing. There is an outer and an inner gate, which are not in line but create a twisted, staggered entry, making it difficult for intruders to get to the second gate. Inside the walls were huts, at a later stage stone houses, and traces of iron and tin smelting were found. The stone-lined well was excavated in 1927. Judging from its enormous size, the castle must have been an important site for the tin trade. Perhaps Lanyon Quoit is the most famous of the Penwith quoits, close to Lanyon Road, convenient with a lay-by. Unfortunately, it is the least authentic. It originally dated from the early Neolithic period and consisted of a large capstone about 5 meters long on 4 upright support stones, similar to Chûn Quoit. Then, in 1815, it collapsed in a storm and some stones were fractured, so that it was re-erected in 1824 with only 3 upright stones. Undeniably, however, it has retained its mystic charm. About half a mile further north is the perfectly excavated Bosiliack Barrow, which also dates from the Neolithic. 5 meters in diameter, it would have been 1.5 meters high and covered by a mound of earth and stones. This type of monument is called entrance grave or chamber tomb. The entrance passage was positioned deliberately to face the midwinter solstice sunrise. On a sunny December morning, you could witness the first sun rays cross the gate and enter the chamber. Men-an-Tol translates hold stone. Locally it was also known as Crickstone. In the past people visited the place and passed through the hold stone as it was believed to have healing powers. It is believed to belong to the Bronze Age, and research has shown that it was part of a circle. Certainly it was some kind of meeting place for the Bronze Age people on various occasions. One may have been midsummer. I visited the place twice in recent years on the 21st of June, and lying in the grass, observed the sun rise within the circle of the whole stone. Nearby Men Scryfa is unique in Penwith because, as the name says, it has an inscription, which suggests that it is a memorial stone. The name runs down in 2 vertical lines, which is admittedly hardly possible to decipher these days. It is a Latinized form of Cornish and means Royal Raven, son of valiant hound. The names probably refer to the son of a Celtic leader or chieftain. It stands in a triangular field against the wonderful backdrop of Carn Galva. This is the nearest Tor enclosure to the sea, 250 metres above sea level, with an excellent view of the northern coastline. Access to the top is a little demanding, as most of the time no well-trodden path can be seen. It was found to be the site of a Neolithic Tor enclosure in 1984. 2 tumbled walls link natural outcrops and define a pair of artificially levelled terraces. Carn Galva is the most striking visual feature in the landscape, visible from many other megalithic monuments. Above all, from Boskednan stone circle, the 2 highest stones form a portal which frames the rocky summit. Although it is also known as the 9 Maidens, the circle now comprises 11 stones, 2 of which were re-erected in 2004. The even spacing between the surviving stones suggests that the site was originally laid out as a perfect circle, just under 22 meters in diameter, comprising 22 or 23 stones. The first written record of the circle tells us that in the mid-18th century the circle comprised 19 stones. So 8 stones have probably been used for house building in nearby villages. There are years when it is hardly possible to find the 8 round houses of Bodrifty because it is so easily overgrown with brambles, gorse and bracken. The huts measure an average diameter of 7.5 meters and were encircled by a low wall from earth and stone. Like Chûn Castle, they date from the Iron Age. When they were excavated in the 1950s, about 3,000 shards of pottery were found. 1 kilometer eastward, at the top of Mulfra Hill, you find another quoit. This aerial view, with 4 footpaths converging on Mulfra Quoit, suggests that it was not simply a burial site, but, like all those quoits, a place where people came together on certain occasions. The mystery of Mulfra Quoit is that it has only 3 upright slabs, so it is no wonder that the enormous capstone has slid down and now leans against the chamber. The whereabouts of the 4th are unknown. The low stone embankment surrounding the original mound, which was mentioned in early descriptions, has disappeared too. The age and function of this circle on Treen Common are largely unknown. Strictly speaking, it is an elliptic shape, consisting of 14 stones, some of them almost completely hidden in the bracken. The low bank of earth and rubble that more or less clearly defines the structure suggests that it is not a Bronze Age circle, but rather part of a late Iron Age settlement. About 1 mile south of the cliff castle at Gurnard's Head, these hardly preserved cairns seem to be part of a field system, and access is pretty difficult today. 1 Neolithic chambered cairn, however, has survived and can easily be seen in a field. 3 kilometers east-northeast, about an hour's walk, largely uphill, from the village of Zennor is Zennor Quoit. It is slightly different from Chûn and Mulfra Quoits in that it originally had two large facade stones that formed an antechamber to the monument, which may have been used for ceremonial purposes. Excavations have recovered a variety of pottery, bones, etc., that showed it was in use from the Neolithic into the Bronze Age. Fortunately, when in 1861 a farmer was going to destroy the quoit to build a cowshed, at the last minute this could be prevented by a local antiquarian. The stones standing to the east of the monument are the remains of that cowshed. Close by, but in a much worse condition and not easy to find, is Sperris Quoit. Like the other quoits, it dates from the Neolithic. According to the first description in the 18th century, it was fairly complete. Like many other sites, it was ransacked and the stones were used as building materials in nearby hamlets and villages. Castle-an-Dinas, another Iron Age hill fort of enormous proportions, much larger than Chûn. Its diameter is 120 meters. It is assumed that the site was of some significance for even earlier settlers, as the existence of three circular structures in the centre indicates that may have been ring cairns of the Bronze Age. The four ramparts are still clearly visible, with the outermost, however, only in the northwest section. The folly of Roger's Tower, which looks like a giant sandcastle, was built probably from granite boulders from the castle ramparts in the late 18th century by John Rogers, who lived nearby at the bottom of the hill. Trencrom Hill, another Iron Age hill fort which was previously a single-walled Neolithic tor enclosure. The top of the hill can be seen from all directions, and long-distance views from the top, especially at the time of sunrise, are magic. The almost level area of the hilltop measures 140 meters from north to south. Due to the steepness of the slope, there are no ditches to reinforce the wall around the hill. There is a fine entrance at the eastern side, complete with granite gate jambs. Unlike Castle-an-Dinas, it was inhabited. Cairns and remains of hut circles can be seen in the level area. So-called cup marks can be found. Hollows carved into granite may be a prehistoric form of art, may be related to spiritual rituals. Finds of pottery show that the site was used well beyond Roman times. St. Michael's Mount is visible from the southern side of the hill fort. It is the last of the granite outcrops that counts among the tor enclosures, and later in the Iron Age, perhaps as early as during the Bronze Age, very probably functioned as an ancient trading place and harbour for tin and copper exports, as described and named as Ictis by Pliny the Elder.
St. Michael's Mount is holy ground, an iconic gem, steeped in history and folklore. Beautiful but no pomp, it's Cornish to the core. I watch your pretty western face, often grey and pale, blurred by a melancholy veil. Rosy cheeks are delight, your more seductive side.